He's kind of like the Joe Rogan of the hospitality industry right now.
We ask everyone, if you have a magic wand and you could fix a problem, what would it be? 45% of those say tech issues. So while many of us operators, property managers are leveraging tools like dynamic pricing and automated messaging, there are areas where tech is still underutilized, big time. So to many operators, they rely heavily on OTAs, which makes direct bookings a huge opportunity. So again, underutilized tools like booking engine integrations, SEO optimization, or SEO optimized websites, they can help you with this. And with platforms like Hostfully, you can create a seamless direct booking experience that saves you a ton on OTA fees.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Wil Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. Welcome back, Slick Talkers, to another episode and the first episode of 2025. Happy New Year, and I hope you, your family, your friends, and your coworkers, your teams, etc., have all enjoyed the amazing holidays. I hope you had a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, all the above. I'm so excited to share that this episode is featuring Frank and Fred from Hostfully. Now, as you know, Hostfully is a great partner of the show. They have been partners with me for years, and every year we try to sit down and go over their industry report, which is just getting bigger and bigger every year. And so obviously, as you know, this episode is specifically about their industry report. So we're going to dive into a lot of topics, but I just want to make sure that you grab the link in the show notes and follow along with us. You can download the report, grab that link, sign up, get that report directly to your inbox and follow along. It's so much details. There's a lot of industry thought leader quotes. There's so much data, and of course, topics on trends like tech and AI, and of course, revenue and how operators are growing with upsells and profitability and other business models. And so this episode is a fun dive into kind of highlighting the year of 2024 through Hostfully's eyes and their report and looking into 2025. I'm super excited to have them on. And now enjoy this episode with Frank and Fred at Hostfully. All right, Slick Talkers, we're back. And this episode is a special episode that we get to do every year. Ever since we've been partners with Hostfully, we've covered the yearly reports that they put out and put a lot of love and labor into. And so I have the amazing gentlemen from Hostfully on the show today. Welcome to Fred and Frank. Long time no see, my friends. How are you doing?
Hey, Wil. Great to be here.
Good seeing you, Slickers. Thanks for having us, by the way.
Of course. Well, this is such a fun episode for me to look forward to every year. Obviously, I know you guys just continue to make this report even more extensive and built out. So before getting started, just some housekeeping for the listeners. Obviously, as we're discussing this report, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of graphs, images, design, beautiful work into this report. So if you're a visual person like me, grab that link in the show notes, sign up for the report, get a copy sent to your email inbox, and take a look and actually follow along on some of these categories we're going to jump into. But before that, I would be a horrible podcast host to not let my amazing guests introduce themselves. So Frank, we're actually going to start with you since you're at the top of the video for me, and then we'll go to Fred and then move into the report.
Oh, I was going to let Fred go because ladies tend to go first. I'm Frank. Thanks. I'm Frank Bosey. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development here at Hostfully.
And I'm Fred Vasily. I'm the Marketing Manager at Hostfully. And this report we're talking about is one of my big projects that I go through every year. So really excited to talk about it with you today.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears on Freddie's side for sure.
Thanks for the credit.
I was just going to say, I think you're the man that probably should get most of the credit for this report, right? You're the one that's gathering all the data, getting the quotes, chasing people down, doing all the stuff. So
Yeah, well, to be fair, we've had help internally this year at Hostfully. We also have Julia, an amazing writer that really helped me out on the report this year. So credit should go to her as well.
it wasn't ChatGPT that helped
It
you.
wasn't ChatGPT. Can you believe it? Although we'll talk about ChatGPT today, I'm sure.
It'll come up.
I was gonna say I was really hoping we were gonna avoid this AI topic, but the report definitely covers AI. So before going into AI, let's start with the state of the industry for 2024 and the overview of the year that we've had. I think is always great to reflect. So Fred, since you started, or not started, but finished up on the intro here, let's go with you on this question around how are vacation rental operators adjusting to broader economic headwinds like rising interest rates and, of course, reduced household budgets. We all know the industry has been hurting a little bit, so would love to see what your guys' insights brought.
Yeah. So like you said, the rising interest rates and just the hard real estate landscape that we're seeing, it's just putting a lot of pressure on operators. Typically, like we see that in the question where we ask about growth. So normally we see operators add more properties to their portfolio. So like in 2023, it was one of the most popular strategies, it was 78%. It's still number one in 2024, but that 78% dropped to 54. So it's actually quite a significant drop. And then this year we saw actually marketing being a growth strategy go up. So you could see people are adjusting their strategies and they're trying to get the most out of their properties or the listings that they do have and market them to a bigger audience. And then within the report, we also see direct booking strategies just becoming even more prevalent than it's ever been. It's something that's been climbing up and up since the pandemic, but now that there's, I would say, like a material long-term pressure on the industry and on people to perform with the properties that they have, they're really looking at direct bookings for a number of reasons. Obviously, not paying the commissions, more control, but more pricing flexibility and the opportunity for repeat bookings. So I think operators are also seeing that maybe it's going to be a little longer, so they're planning for the repeat business of direct bookings for 2-3 years down the road.
Can I ask, in the terms of marketing, is that direct, like organic marketing through social media? Is this newsletters? Is this paid marketing on Google, Facebook? Do you guys kind of get some insight on what marketing entails for them?
Yeah, we asked what strategies they use for marketing, and it really changes a little bit based on the size of your company. Obviously, there's things that just aren't accessible if you're a solo operator or if you have a small team. But, typically as you grow, the repeat booking for direct bookings is something that's going to be very popular. The one thing that we see being the least consistently popular with all types of operators is paid ads on search engines. So just an extremely costly proposition for almost every company. You're competing with, Airbnb for the paid ads, you're via Verbal, Booking, like everybody's, competing for those keywords and paying for them. So that's where we also see search engine optimization being a little bit, becoming a bit more popular because it is, and the listeners can't see it, but it's quote unquote free. There's still quite a bit of work you have to do for SEO, but once you've got a strategy put in place, if you run sort of continuously and keep paying dividends as you go along throughout the year.
Okay, I don't know if I really need to put a Hostfully ad in this episode, but why not? Because they're so amazing that as you're going to hear more about their technology and of course the report, you're going to see that Frank is just as passionate about making sure that customer service is at top of mind for Hostfully. And that's one of the things I love about working with them is that Frank and many other members of the team truly care about your success with their product. So when you're signing up for Hostfully using Slick Talk or the link in the show notes and letting them know that Wil Slickers sent you, you're going to get that customer service all the way through. You're going to have amazing partners with you that are going to help you understand the tool. Bryce Carpenter is their VP of customer success and is truly in tune with his customers and making sure that they're utilizing Hostfully to the best of their ability. So that's my promotion and my quick blurb for Hostfully today, because there's no need to sell the product when I can just sell the team that sells the product better than I can, because they just truly take care of you and make sure that you know how to use it. So there you go. Shout out to Hostfully. Let's get back to the report. I love it. And Frank, I would love to know, because you get to talk with a lot of operators in general, right? Like you guys have a pretty significant amount of users on the platform from all shapes and sizes, right? So
Yep.
From the data you see on the report to the conversations you're having in person, how does this all tie together?
Pretty much, I think a huge focus is revenue optimization for sure. Many operators are using dynamic pricing tools to adjust their rates and stay competitive, while at the same time they're offering these flexible booking policies. So kind of just staying ahead of your competition in the market. But I would also say just focus on local travelers, staycation, short trips, but using that as an opportunity to upsell those guests, early arrivals, late check-ins, like the local experiences. For sure, but then also a focus on the property manager is installing, and this is one that I got on a demo recently, kind of going back to what you asked about the headwinds of the economy. A lot of property managers are installing smart thermostats, which is obvious, but a lot of property managers are now also putting LED lights, and we're seeing just these small adjustments that are made to your operations that have like a financial contribution to your overall bottom line. There was also a conversation I had a few weeks ago with some of our clients, and I was actually caught off guard because all three of them did this, and it was shifting their focus to more affordable listings in high demand areas, which is obvious. But then what all three of them did was they just removed and fired essentially their underperforming properties with confidence. And even though, they had 20 listings and they went down to 12, they were okay with it. And they actually saw a better ROI and a better forecast and a better end of year because of that removal of those properties. So there's little things you can do along the way. And obviously, it's not going to make sense to every property manager. It's only going to make sense to you, your market, and your SLP.
Yeah. I think we all know, though, from multiple years of conversations on this show or many other conversations at conferences that we all get to go to, right? Like shedding properties actually can be a form of growth, I think. I think like a lot of the times, especially like a little bit COVID era, it was grow at all costs in terms of inventory. And now everyone's kind of realizing like, oh, not every property makes the money that is required to be profitable. So do you guys see like Fred, having Fred and Frank is going to be a tongue twister for me to
Welcome to my world.
But, with Fred, I'm curious with the growth numbers that you're talking about from 2023 to 2024, right? Like it was a significant number for last year. It wasn't as significant, but it was still the number one growth. Do you think the shedding of properties piece is accounted for in there? Or is this strictly just in terms of how are we going to grow in terms of just overall property management?
It's a good question. Unfortunately, it's how we ask it. So we do ask, like, do you add more properties? But I think given the popularity that we're seeing, at least in the last 2 years, of people just firing clients, essentially, that's definitely something we should be adding to the survey for future years, just because, I don't know, I hear more and more people talking about it. So people are becoming a little more aware. Like, I think the analytics are getting better. The tools to assess those properties are getting better.
Yeah. So
I'm really curious next year when we're going to add that question or that option in, if we're going to see that pop up in a predictable way.
I love it. Well, you also mentioned direct bookings earlier and how obviously this is still a big shift for property managers outside of just marketing or social media, et cetera. So the report highlights a steady decline in reliance on Airbnb and the rise of direct bookings. What strategies do successful operators use to drive direct bookings? Because I'm sure there's got to be more than one. that is outside of like putting a QR code on your property or something.
Yeah.
there's
Go ahead, Freddie. You can take it.
there's actually quite a bit that people are doing for direct bookings, and of course, the bigger the company, the more strategies will be at play. But just to get back to like your comment on Airbnb, we are seeing a decline. It used to be 48% of all bookings 4 years ago, and now it's like down to 42. So it's noticeable. But now to talk about direct bookings, the repeat booking discount is an extremely popular strategy. So it's about just informing them that they can come back at a lower rate and online. And there's really great people out there. They have all these tips and tricks and hacks to be able to do that. So that's extremely popular strategy for, let's say, under 25 properties. And then after that, we start to see a switch where the company gets a little bit bigger. Maybe they have a someone responsible for marketing. And that's where we see search engine optimization really becoming like the number one popular strategy. Then after that, I was very surprised to see organic social media coming into play. And I think that's probably going to get a little bit more prevalent as people start to use AI and large language models to generate the content for them. And then they just have to supply images or create an image with it. But that's like a very second close, very popular strategy. And then we get referral discounts. And then, all those change a little bit. So if you get the chance to read the report, maybe you could see how many properties you have. And then if that fits into like how you run your marketing, maybe it gives you a couple of good ideas. But the referral discount is another popular strategy. Of course, that you need to maybe have like a system to capture all those things, but there's software out there like Referral Rock does those things really well. And again, kind of like I hinted earlier in the podcast, the number one least popular, or the least popular, I should say, is paid ads on search engine. It's just brutally expensive. And I looked at the numbers myself because I had a hard time like wrapping my head around. But for markets like, let's say, Austin or Dallas, or I looked at the Colorado markets as well, it was just extremely expensive to buy paid ads for your vacation rental. And then you have to consider you have to pay that cost per click multiple times to convert one guest. So I could see why people they don't have the deep pockets to be able to do that or make it profitable for them.
Yeah, but even with like the right software, you technically don't have to pay so much money. So I think, property managers and operators are becoming a little bit more educated and knowledgeable about what's out there in terms of software. Paid ads cost you up the wazoo. You don't need to pay all that money to do simple things with your current property management software. I mean, having a killer online presence is one thing, but out of the box direct booking website, it's included in Hostfully's packaging and pricing. Simple upgrades like targeted keywords, a huge social media, having constant Instagram posts and TikToks that link back to that direct booking website. That's one thing that you can do that is, that doesn't cost really anything. But ultimately what we have to go back to discussing, and I think that this is a huge thing that a lot of, I guess, newer operators are seeing, is like more heads in beds, more financial focus. The way that you're going to get more direct bookings and the way that you're going to get repeat guests and the way that you're going to get loyal repeat guests is just having that communication with the direct bookings, sending the follow-up emails, the text, the WhatsApp after a guest stays, offering discounts for the next trip if they book with you directly. Again, all of this can be communicated with a link to the direct booking website and kind of get that flow going. I've also seen a few operators use newsletters to keep guests in the loop about special offers, what's happening locally, any new properties that you're acquiring. So like a newsletter doesn't really cost you anything, but it's keeping you, it's kind of keeping the operator aware of their competition, but also having the guests having more visibility on that property manager and their business than some other competitor who's not doing that. And then, of course, I have to talk about our digital guidebooks. I mean, with Hostfully, operators are creating personalized digital guidebooks, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. But they're enhancing the guest experience while at the same time they're encouraging repeat direct bookings. In my opinion, guidebooks are a great way to build trust and kind of stay at top of mind for the guests.
For sure. We use our guidebooks through you guys to do a lot of assistance in-home marketing with our properties. So obviously, like, yes, you're going to learn how to use the oven and the dishwasher and the coffee pot and blah, blah, blah. But we also are putting like QR codes that like lead people back to our favorite locations for these activities. Or, hey, did you know we have a concierge service? You can like scan it, and like that all leads back to us directly. And I think, so making a statement, I think in-house marketing is underutilized even to this day, which I thought we all kind of were on board with during COVID to change, but apparently that shifted. Just kidding. But and then so my question to you would be like, do you guys think that's part of the marketing piece that is going into this growth? Like, did anyone talk about throughout this report going beyond like the digital aspect to drive direct bookings, but actually using like QR codes or other things inside the home to help push towards book direct?
Yeah, I mean, you can only ask so many questions of people until they get frustrated answering so many things. I wish we could go in that level of detail.
For sure.
But what you're saying makes absolute sense, and I have the feeling from conversations that some of these are in play already with some of the more astute or people that really push the limits of what they can get out of their direct bookings.
For sure. Well, to go into the next part, because you mentioned obviously like paid ads on Google is really rough. It's really expensive. You basically need a full-time person dedicated to it because the learning curve in general is probably enough to slow you down. So Google is a paid platform for marketing, but Google is also kind of emerged into vacation rentals through Google for vacation rentals, basically. I don't know if that's the actual title, but I know they've changed it a couple of times. So Google has emerged as a noticeable booking source. Is this helping or hindering the growth? And I guess, how can property managers effectively utilize a tool like Google Travel integrations to diversify their channels? Because I know, like paid marketing is great, but channel diversification is also an easy, low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Well, this is the first year we ask. We've put Google as an option. So there's a little bit of refinement we have to do, because Google means a lot of different things. Just like you said, it's SEO, paid ads, or the Google Travel widget. But what we've seen in the report, because there are parts where people can just put a free-form answer, is the Google Travel widget that integrates directly into your PMS. So that's the unfortunate part, is you kind of need to be using a PMS. So it excludes the smaller operators that might not be using a property management software.
Good thing Hostfully is built for smaller operators that have 1 to 5 properties or more, hundreds of properties.
I was about to jump in right there, but we're just going to hire Will on our sales team.
I was like, you guys forget that the show is sponsored by Hostfully, right? I love the product, and I'm here to plug and play all day. So,
but so the way the integration works is it basically pulls all your listing information, and when a user searches for vacation rental in a certain area, it links it and puts it on a map similar to what you get the experience with the hotel, and it just puts you out there, and then it links you back to your website. So that's a very affordable way to get in front of millions of searches every single month, or searchers. Now they have to search for your area. So let's say tens of thousands of impressions that you might be getting for your property located on a map. So it, if they click on that link, there's a high intent that they want to book that reservation. The only thing I would caution would be for Google is the desire for SEO. It's easy to underplay or underestimate how difficult it can be to do SEO just right. And just being on Hostfully's marketing team, and just, we do a lot of our effort is SEO at Hostfully. It's kind of like, it's a deep rabbit hole that you can get into. There's shiny object syndrome out there, and there's a lot of courses you can buy that maybe they're outdated. So you just have to be really careful if you're going to be trying that in 2025. But there are really great people out there in the industry that can help you with your website, and we can provide recommendations later on. And there's a reason why SEO is popular with the larger operators. Like we've seen in our report, past 25 properties, almost everyone's involved in that, and they have a team or someone responsible that can do it. So those are maybe just a little bit of context to add to Google. But for sure, if you're using a PMS, activate that Google Travel widget and just get in front of those searchers every month.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in, Fred, it's definitely making sure that it's active and getting on to Google Vacations, but you also want to make sure your Google Travel profile is complete. I've had so many conversations where people are, hey, I don't see any, any ROI from Google Travel, and all this stuff is. The solution is their profile is not complete. So based on experience, I would add high quality photos as well as detailed property descriptions. So obviously, and sometimes you don't really think about it, but a polished listing helps you stand out from your competition, but it also builds trust with potential guests. So the prettier pictures you have, the more trust you're going to have, because if there's a sense of professionalism behind it. Also, be sure to have accurate pricing. So you can do this by using a dynamic pricing tool that's integrated with Hostfully to keep your rates competitive on Google Travel and across the market. Or you could also manually adjust directly from Hostfully. So for seasonality, demanded travel, local events to attract more bookings, make sure you have accurate pricing updated. Because more than any time, you don't realize that sometimes is hindering you from getting reservations. But of course, like once all set, share your Google links to your listing on social media. Share it in all of your future communications, all of those automated templates and triggers and automated text messages you have. Put it in there. And as Fred said, Google is tricky for now. I mean, it's new, right? So we can't expect to see an increase in bookings overnight. And I make sure that I say this in all of my demos because it's a great partnership we have. It's a great change in the OTA game. It's really going to be interesting what the next couple of years has in store. But don't forget to check your numbers. Look at your analytics, like booking trends, conversion rates. And then once you have those numbers, just tweak your pricing, tweak your descriptions, change your photos, and just improve those results and see if that helps your Google Travel ROI in a way.
Yeah, very good. Very good advice. I do want to ask, because OTAs in general have been, I would say, it's definitely been a big year for them for 2024. From Expedia to, Booking.com getting more into STRs, now Google, and then of course you have the others like Marriott Homes and Villas, and of course the Capital One cards getting in the game, and Amex, and all these new channels. So any other thoughts or insights from what other channels or what kind of distribution plays operators should be taking advantage of?
For sure. It gets a little tricky for people to diversify their bookings, just because Airbnb, let's face it, they're really good at what they do. They bring in users. There's a lot of loyalty. So even though people are trying to diversify away from Airbnb, it's going to be there. Now, for newcomers in the industry, I think Airbnb just sees it as like, the expression "hold my beer." They've been at this for a long time, and I wouldn't discount them. Now, for listing on smaller sites or more niche sites, that's something we preach at Hostfully quite a bit, booking diversification. There's just something that, and we capture this in the report, there's a question we ask, like, why don't you list on more listing sites and OTAs? And the answer is, well, I didn't get bookings, so I tried and I didn't get anything out of them. But it makes sense in the sense, like, you can't just activate all those on your channel manager and then expect that your calendar is going to fill in. Some of these are very niche, and in some cases, it's maybe not worth your time to list on those. So you really have to think of your traveler persona and match the OTA or the listing site that you want to be on, and maybe there's an optimization that you can do there. So it's not just a question of like clicking like 40 times and activating all those channels and setting up your payment processor on those things. Like, just it's got to make somewhat a little bit of sense for you to be on those. But once you hit the right audience and your listings attract, it can be very profitable. The one that comes to mind is like Furnish Finder, where people are booking midterm rentals and seeing a lot of success on those. There's also the last minute reservation OTAs that we're seeing a lot of success. So Whimstay and Getaway Go. And that's a great way to fill your inventory at the last minute. So there's options out there. I would just say experiment. And maybe if you have the capacity to do it, try and run a survey with your guests on the way out and see what did they like, where are they from, what other platforms they're on. And, maybe it'll uncover something that you're not aware of. And then you can go out and find that OTA, like Europeans, for example. If you attract a lot of them in your area, they love using their European OTAs, like Hold to Go is very popular there. So again, but if you're just attracting local travelers and you're in the US, maybe Hold to Go won't give you anything. So it's just you have to be mindful of how you use those smaller sites, but they can be very lucrative.
For sure. Frank, any other comments?
No. I mean, Fred covered it.
Love it.
Thanks,
Frank. Well,
yeah. Really, I mean, Airbnb is obviously still a key player, right? But there is a shift happening. And as Fred mentioned, we're seeing that Google Travel is now accounting for 5% of bookings. So it is a clear sign that operators are looking to diversify, definitely beyond the trends of the traditional OTAs.
Yeah.
So it's a good time for those smaller niche ones to come into the market, in the industry.
For sure. And the kind of next question that we've been kind of going in already into a little bit is around not growth as much, but more around competition. And so the report shows a mixed perception of competition, with smaller operators definitely feeling the pressure. How can small and mid-size operators differentiate themselves in a crowded market? And I only ask this question because out of the almost 7 years of doing this show, I've gotten to see a lot of listeners evolve over the years, and from small property managers to big property manager giants that they're in the industry today. And so we have a wide range of listeners tuning in, but I definitely know there's a lot in the Slick Talk ecosystem that are still in that mid-size area, maybe under 100 homes, give or take, right around that mark. And it's hard to stand out. So I would love to know from the reports, how can the mid-sized operators differentiate themselves?
Sure. So the first thing I want to say is it's not because you don't have over 100 properties that you're not doing well. It's like, I know we often have a tendency to like, you've got like 300 listings, you're crushing it. Yeah, but they chose to scale that way. So I just want to put that there. But what to do if you're small? So if you got like 10 doors or 10 listings under your management, the advantage you have at that scale is that you can be very nimble and you can navigate, and you can try new things and test them out. And if they don't work for you, move on to the next, just ensuring that you've done the best you can. So the first thing I would try, if I was small, would be to offer upsells to guests. And Frank talk upsells, it's one of his pet topics. But there's potential to boost your bottom line by like 20% if you just offer early check-in, late checkout, and maybe get a couple of referrals on tours. And then there's automation, which is where you can save and differentiate yourself from your competitors. Sorry about that. We're all getting tongue twisters.
We all got a little tongue-tied. Well, I can't even say it.
See, there you go. But the guest check-in is probably an area where small operators, some of them feel the need to still do the in-person greeting. And that's where automation can really help you out, getting smart locks on those doors and just delivering PIN codes automatically in your free arrival messages. And we see it in the data. So it's a really easy win to implement. I don't know, Frank, did you have any recommendations for smaller operators out there?
Yeah, I mean, the one takeaway is while competition is tough, the smaller operators have plenty of ways to shine, in my opinion. Like you said, if you have 100 listings, doesn't mean you're not as successful as someone with smaller listings. I would say the biggest suggestion would be to focus and really focus on, but also market what makes your property special. Like, are you catering to families? Are you catering to couples, remote workers? Are you catering to pet owners? Tailor your space and marketing efforts to those groups specifically. So small to mid-size operators, although, having 100 listings is great. I mean, absolutely. Kudos to you guys, really. It's a lot of work. But the smaller and mid-sized operators still have, they can still add personal touches that are a bit more difficult for those big brands to execute, like handwritten notes, for example, local guides, thoughtful, put a lot of thought and time into amenities. And then also I think what a lot of the smaller property managers and operators do is they think local. So partnering with local restaurants, vendors, tour operators, even activity providers via Viator. More to come on that if you want to learn more. Frank at hostfully.com. But it'll offer unique packages and discounts because it adds value for your guests and it makes your property stand out amongst the rest in your market when it comes to competition.
This episode is brought to you by Send Squared. For all my friends listening, technology is a huge part of your business, but I cannot believe I've gone this long without using a CRM. And that is why I'm so thankful to say that I'm partnered with Send Squared all throughout the year of 2025, where they're going to be a partner with us. And they are an amazing hospitality CRM, from phone numbers to WhatsApp and texting, their mobile app, which you can manage all of your communications on the go, plus any lead forms for your website. There's just so many pieces that have been built into the Send Squared technology. And I've been working with the team to onboard myself and our company onto Send Squared. And I just can't believe I haven't been using something like this for so long. And I'm just actually really thankful that the Send Squared team wanted to work with me on onboarding Hospitality FM into the product, because now we have so much capability to actually create and be creative with how we can generate leads for our sales, or not only for our sales, but managing big high profile guest profiles and making sure that our podcasts are getting the top information from our big name guests, and of course managing so much more that can go into our audience and having them call in for our hospitality hotline or any of this stuff. So if you are inspired by what I'm sharing, then I think you need to get with Send Squared as well. If you don't have your company on a CRM, especially if you're a hospitality operator, don't join any other just typical CRM that you're going to see on Google. Go with an industry specific, because they've built it for you. They've built it to integrate with your property management software, with any of your other stuff, to make sure that you're managing your communications directly with your guests and your team. It's just so important. And I just can't believe I haven't joined a CRM or even heard of Send Squared sooner. And so I'm so excited. So go to the link in the show notes, let them know that Wil Slickers sent you, and we'll make sure that you guys are getting well taken care of. Get your company on a CRM, manage and assign your stuff for your team's sake. I know it is a challenge as an entrepreneur sometimes, but go ahead, get on board with a system like Send Squared, not like Send Squared. Get on a system called Send Squared. Just get with Send Squared. Anyways, grab the link in the show notes. Thank you so much to the Send Squared team for joining the show. We're so excited to work with you. And now back to the episode.
Yeah, I think the packages piece for me is what we're starting to see is going to be the biggest way to stand out, because I think it adds to the experience. It's not just a transaction. So definitely increasing those reviews, the communication scores, all the above. So I really like that. Well, awesome. Okay, so Frank, I also know you love the digital guidebooks. So with the use of digital guidebooks and how it's increased, especially during COVID, I know David Jacoby and myself and a bunch of us talked about this in the COVID years, right? As the digital guidebooks really got their opportunity to shine. But yeah, while the use of digital guidebooks has increased and physical guidebooks have decreased, what innovations in guest communication do you guys foresee, or Frank, for you to start, where do you see, for you to see for the industry? Wow, here we go. Well, these questions are really hard to get out.
We should have all future podcasts like do a tongue twister in the beginning. Get us all loosey goosey.
Do some warm ups.
Yeah, exactly. Watermelon, rhubarb. Back in my theater days. I digress. But with the guidebooks, I mean, it really is a phenomenal platform, and we're constantly advancing and growing with our guidebooks. I mean, we're 10 years old, practically. So innovation is hard to predict, but we can confirm that I think AI is transforming digital guidebooks. The future of digital guest communication and guest experience is going to be the merging of AI and digital guidebooks, really just with hopes of improving the stay and communicating the local experience. Lately, we've been seeing that the guidebook product, that ultimately what will happen and where we would probably see this going is it learns your guests' preferences, but then it offers tailored recommendations for those restaurants, for those activities, for the attractions that you've it's learned that you would prefer. I also see AI-driven chatbots. They could act like a virtual concierge, so like answering questions in real time, 24/7 hours, 7 days a week. Even being able to log in or not log into your unit, but to access your unit via the guidebook on your phone. So even like devices like Amazon Echo or Google Nest, those are a game changer since now they can let guests all things like, for example, like a guest can say, Alexa, what's the Wi-Fi password? It's going to respond. Where's the nearest coffee shop? It's going to respond based on the information and the intel that you provided in your guidebook. So hosts can even customize voice commands to fit their property and their brand. So that's kind of what I see it happening in the future. Eventually, as smart home tech becomes standardized, digital guidebooks will allow guests to adjust, you could be able to adjust the thermostat via the guidebook, or unlock the door, or turn off the lights from all of your, from the devices that you're using, or the device that you have the guidebook on. But digital guidebooks will eventually just also provide hosts with insights, analytics, like which guidebook pages guests visit the most and which upsell was purchased the most frequently. Having this intel and these analytics is definitely going to help you tweak your guidebook a little bit more to include the content that your guests ultimately find the most useful. So you're ensuring every stay improves every guest at a time. So there's a lot of opportunity for digital guidebooks. I think it's extremely underrated, and I would highly suggest at least every operator or property manager or vacation rental company to consider the guidebooks. Absolutely. And even there's like fun stuff you could do with it to boost direct bookings, to boost upsells. Again, all of these different features and capabilities we have with our digital guidebook. So if you do want to learn more, do not hesitate to email me directly. We could set up a meeting and chat. I love talking about our guidebooks, as Wil mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm a customer of Hostfully. We use the guidebooks. We use the PMP. I know, and for the longest time, and I'm sure you guys are gonna maybe not like the same in the beginning, but I've learned my lesson. I for the longest time was like, guidebooks are not, we should not be focusing on guidebooks anymore in the industry. Know. There's too many in the industry, right? Like we use them and we know that they should be used, but I didn't think we needed 10 companies doing them, right? And so Andrew Kitchell kind of brought up the point of view of guidebooks being the true gateway to the share of wallet of guests and travelers through, coming through our properties. And I didn't think about that, but kind of going to the other question around how can these mid-size operators differentiate themselves in a crowded market? Not a guidebook, but I think the data in itself, right? Like you guys are talking about all these technology pieces that are providing, whether it's through Hostfully or through a partner of Hostfully's, but the data itself, to have the data behind the guidebook that tells you what page is working the best, what upsells have been converted the most, that information is so crucial as a business owner to really understand and know how to actually enhance more or dwindle down or whatever. So I just think for me, that kind of was a big no-brainer, that the data in itself can help you stand out. And so I think, yeah, that's a long story short of me saying I learned my lesson from Andrew after having that conversation, because he said it was the actual key to innovation, share of wallet, et cetera. And I was very anti that. But now after having that conversation and then obviously learning the product more and developing with guidebooks as they're getting better and better each year, it's like, okay, I underestimated the guidebook game.
Oh, glad to have you on our side now.
Well, I've always been on the side. I just never thought of it being as like such a game-changing product. I was like, okay, like cool, get the door code, get the address, and get the hell out of here. You know, like it's not that much more information you really need. But yeah, that's just me. That's usually me as a traveler. I don't care about grocery stores and restaurants. I'll just pull up Google, right? Like I'm not looking for recommendations usually. But anyways, moving on. I digress. I do love that for the guidebooks piece, but going into technology, it was a huge part of the report, and it was also cited as a big challenge, probably the biggest challenge for operators. Are there areas where operators underutilizing tech, is there an area that operators are underutilizing tech, and how can they close these gaps? So obviously, Hostfully is a technology company. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big question every year. And Fred, if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 45% of all. So we asked everyone, if you have a magic wand and you could fix a problem, what would it be? 45% of those say tech issues. So while many of us operators, property managers are leveraging tools like dynamic pricing and automated messaging, there are areas where tech is still underutilized, big time. So to many operators, they rely heavily on OTAs, which makes direct bookings a huge opportunity. So again, underutilized tools like booking engine integrations, SEO optimization or SEO optimized websites, they can help you with this. And with platforms like Hostfully, you can create a seamless direct booking experience that saves you a ton on OTA fees, and really at the same time builds your guest loyalty. And I mean, you could essentially leverage your direct bookings to increase the personalization aspect, which is another area where tech can really make you shine and set you apart from your competition. Going back to digital guidebooks, like those from Hostfully, we provide tailored recommendations. We make guests feel cared for while reducing those repetitive questions. So again, AI-driven tools can really predict guest preferences and suggest personalized add-ons or upsells, which in turn will get you more revenue. Fortunately, you do have a number of software out there to assist with your manual tasks. So as many of us know, that there are software out there to assist you, but it's crazy how many operators still manage cleaning and maintenance manually, either via an Excel sheet or direct text messaging your cleaners or your engineers. And this just ultimately leads to inefficiencies, right? So I think property management software, cleaning and turnover management software can really automate your task scheduling, but also assign cleaners based on checkouts, ensuring quicker turnovers for those individuals that purchased an early check-in. Really, I'm doing all of that without the hassle. And I mean, there are also a ton of smart home technology like keyless entry, smart thermostats, voice assistants that can improve not only the guest experience, but your overall operational efficiency. It's amazing how a lot of people still don't offer or take advantage of these technological advancements to help your operational efficiency. And many operators haven't fully embraced these tools yet, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of more education and knowledge and just opening a lot of operators' eyes to what's out there, especially internationally. But once you scale, I think the operator realizes that there's a benefit from this technology because it's easy to manage remotely and it saves a ton of time for both you as well as your guests. And then, of course, just multi-channel management in itself, having a property management software like Hostfully, listing on multiple platforms is great, but managing them manually is hard. You get a lot of double bookings, a lot of human errors. But again, like channel managers like Hostfully can sync calendars, we sync communication, rates, the availability across all the different OTAs, which ultimately reduce the risk of double bookings, and it saves you hours of admin time. But just again, overall, just the takeaway is closing the tech gap, is identifying where you're spending or losing the most time, but also really where you're losing your efficiency to scale and be lucrative. So again, by leveraging the right tools and building your tech stack, you can save time, reduce costs, and just ultimately deliver an even better experience for your guest.
For sure. Fred, what would you say were one key takeaways for, actually, not even that. I'm just going to scratch that question. What were the key takeaways for you in the sense of the report over the last year, and then going into the next year for success? I think that's a optimistic outlook for us to close out on.
Yeah, well, we said we wouldn't talk about it too much, but I think AI, unfortunately, is going to be very important in the next year. But not AI just for the sake of AI. So we asked a question about AI, and I'll promise you I'll stop. I won't go too far into that, but the thing is, it shows it's not necessarily whether you use it or not, what we're finding. So we did find that people that played with it last year, they had higher revenue growth. They had more direct, like they had other benefits. But then if you look at the other questions of the people that use AI, they're also like trying more distribution channels. They're trying more marketing strategies. I think it's a growth mindset. And that's what the 2025 will be a year of. You've got to put yourself in that growth mindset. So is AI part of that? I think so, because it just seems like it's another tool that people are going to try out. And there's so many different ways that you could use it, whether it's built into your PMS, like in your inbox, or you're using it for your social media or improving your listings. But like, it's important that in the next year, operators that want to stay in the game for years to come need to start leveraging that and finding ways for it to work in their business. So for sure, said I wouldn't talk too much about it, but growth mindset, let's focus on that, right?
Growth mindset. Hey, I love that. Well, these are all really great things, but I know for myself, this is the question I want to save for the end, because for myself as a user, and for a lot of our listeners who are also users and hear Hostfully being promoted every week on the pod, what new features can we expect for next year? I'm curious, like what's the new? What do we got going on the roadmap? The actual roadmap, not the roadmap that people may hear at conferences. I want to hear the real.
You want the scoop, huh?
Yeah, the real good.
Yeah, we'll give him the scoop. I mean, as of right now, we don't have any specific details about new features for No, it's not. It hasn't been publicly disclosed. But Hostfully, we do take great pride in our continuous improvement and our responsiveness to user feedback. I can tell you, recent updates included multi-unit.
I was just going to ask, like, what would be some new ones that just help us close out the year, anyways?
Yeah, definitely multi-unit, bulk editing. Enhanced messaging capabilities. For example, we now display messages from Airbnb co-hosts and creating separate threads for multiple bookings by the same guest. Again, this just demonstrates Hostfully's commitment to refining user experience for operational efficiency. I can ensure that Hostfully will continue to develop features that address the evolving needs of the vacation rental market. Simply, again, by just focusing on automation, on AI, integrating capabilities, we really have a nice, clean, user-friendly UI. And really just for the most current information and upcoming features and updates, I'd suggest visiting our website, get on our distribution lists, attend our webinars. Definitely follow us on social media. That's where you get all the updates. But again, we do take great pride in our continuous improvements. And we get that from our users. So really excited for 2025. We do have some really good things in the works, which will probably, one of them will be aired or will be released by the time this is aired. So I'll hold you, I'll do a little to be continued.
How about you just share it since it's going to be out after the air?
Ready?
Well, if I'm not, I'll get in trouble for it, but we are working on building smart devices directly into the property management software. So we're automating the smart locks and the thermostats. That's going to be the next big release that users and people thinking to switch over to Hostfully can look forward to. Frank's the optimist in the group. I don't know if by the time this is released, it's going to be released, that feature, but it is coming.
Will always be in beta.
It's going to be like all the advanced technology at Hostfully. It's we've built it to be serviceable on our end, which translates to lower costs for the user. So it's just very clean technology. And then we can pass along those savings, like our main property management software. It's like the most affordable in the top tier. So it's the same thing with the smart devices. It'll be really affordable. And it's going to be built in directly to the property management software. So I'm probably going to get in trouble for revealing that on the podcast, but I think it's worth it. Something to look forward to post holidays, when after everybody wraps up their holiday season.
For sure.
Come on over to Hostfully. We'll greet you with open arms.
And I mean, if you would like to really just take a deep dive into some of these topics, or because I know that there's a wealth of information that we just threw at you.
For sure.
If you want to learn more about, just fun topics and chat about the industry, I'm more than happy to do so. But also, if you want to learn more about our softwares, features, and our capabilities, please do not hesitate to shoot me an email and book a meeting. I'll be more than happy to walk you all through it.
For sure. Yeah, Frank's my guy for any of the listeners that want to experience the Hostfully product. I always send people to Frank. He's the man that's got him. And then Fred's just my guy that I get the fun emails with. Fred's got the funniest emails. It's hilarious. I love it. But thank you, gentlemen, so much for taking the time to sit down with us to chat about the report. I love this report every year. So Fred, thank you so much for putting it together. And you said Julia
as well. If you see her at a conference, just shake her hand. She's a big part of this now.
Yep. Shout out to Julia as well. Shout out to everyone behind the scenes that makes Hostfully such a great team, from Pedro to Margot to David to everyone else, and Mitch, who I got to hang out with at VRMA. Like, it's just, you guys have such a great group. So want to say thank you again for being on the show. For all the listeners, as you know, this episode and this podcast has been sponsored by Hostfully for 4+ years-ish. So share all the love and support that you give me every week and all of our guests, the same love that to Hostfully, so that way you can make sure that you're getting the best insights and data every year for these reports and all the products. And of course, like always, Slick Talkers, we'll see you guys again next week.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Wil Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.